So like I said, there's three big categories of ways of tempering a keyboard instrument. We have a mean tone, which is finding some way of making an even progression between keys. There's well temperament, which attempts to make every single key usable and avoid the wolf tones that I mentioned in the other video. And then finally, you have equal temperament, which really is a kind of mean tone, which is just trying to make every single key the same and the difference between each half note to be mathematically proportionate and always the same. So what I would say is that within mean tones, you have what's called like a quarter comma or a 1/6 comma mean tone, or again, equal temperament is a 1/12 comma mean tone. And um, that just gets beyond my knowledge too quickly. But there are different kinds of mean tone. And basically the idea is that it's how much are you tempering each fifth. I mentioned in the previous video that if you stack, what is it, several fifths in a row, one, two, three, four fifths on top of each other, you get from C to E, which is a third. And so you can temper those fifths, like you have to choose between whether you make the fifths pure, then the third won't sound good, or if you temper the fifths, you can make the third almost pure. And you can make a bunch of intervals pure, but then other intervals won't be usable. So like C can be really good, G, D, A, up to E can be really good, but then once you get up to B, it starts to get suspicious. Like it'll start to sound bad and you're just gonna start getting like pretty strong dissonance, much stronger than what you get in well temperament. And then F sharp will be like really, really strong and kind of unusable. And then when you go back down, down from C, you go to F, B flat, you're going down the circle of fifths. E flat will be usable, but then when you get to A, that A flat will be off. And so if you have an E that's usable, the A flat major will be not usable and you'll get a wolf tone. And so what harpsichordists did was if they were using quarter comma mean tone, which is just kind of adjusting the fifths to get a good third, they would reach in and tune their instrument to make the A flat. You know, if they're playing an F minor or A flat major, they would adjust the A flat to make it an A flat rather than an E sharp, which is like slightly different key. Like I was mentioning before, what my cellist friend was telling me, you know, A flat really is a different note from E sharp, and that especially shows up in mean tone around, you know, the 4 sharp, 4 flat range. That's when you really start to notice the wolf tones begin to show up. And that's why, you know, Mozart's music or a lot of music from the Renaissance and so forth was really only written in about 8 keys out of 12, you know, C through E, and then C up to A flat, and then they were adjusting. But like very rare to have music with 5 sharps or 5 flats or more in early music. So of that like Renaissance era Western music. So that's mean tone. So you can have 1/6 mean tone, which is like the third is a little bit less pure, and so you have a little bit more expanded use of a few other keys, but it's still, you know, you still get wolf tones. There's still some intervals that aren't very usable, and you can't use all the keys. It's not a well temperament yet. Equal temperament, like I said, is just everything's the same. So it is a mean tone. And a well temperament, that just means that not all the keys are tuned the same way. In other words, and that's kind of the case with certain mean tones, like quarter comma mean tone. Like I said, the A flat is not the same as C, but it's just that you're arriving at that by taking an average of a tone. Whereas well temperament, you arrive at it a different way. So like in mean tone, either, you know, you find some mean and then some of the keys are usable and other keys aren't usable. Well temperament, the idea is all the keys are usable, but they're not the same. And so there's a lot of ways of doing a well temperament. You can have a Victorian temperament, which is it's very, very close to equal temperament. Yeah, it's really close. You can have a Victorian temperament that's a well temperament that's so close to equal you can barely hear the difference. So the nice thing about well temperament is that it's up to you. It's up to you how much difference you want. And basically, if you're doing a well temperament well, the traditional way, what you're going to get is that C will always sound the most pure, C major will always sound the most pure, and then F sharp major will always sound the most dissonant. So in a good well temperament, C will be the most pure, and then F sharp major will be the most vibrating. But in a well temperament, there's a lot of different kinds of well temperament, and basically the basic question is, how pure do you want the C in exchange for how dissonant do you want the F sharp major? And the more pure, like I said in the other video, the more pure you make the C, the more dissonant the other keys are going to have to be to make up for it, because you're adjusting notes within the scale to make C sound good, but the cost of that is that other notes are going to sound less good. So that's a well temperament. So when people are saying, oh, well, you need to play equal temperament for jazz, that doesn't make any much sense, because you can, if you find that a particular tuning style is too spicy, just too spicy, too dissonant for your liking, if it doesn't sound good in jazz, you can just choose a more mild one. But it still seems to me that having contrast between the keys will always, or at least almost always, make music more interesting. I've occasionally played music where I thought, oh, that was written for equal temperament, and I think it would be better in equal temperament. But that's happened to me literally one time in a couple of years of playing all kinds of different modern and classical music, like musicals and pop songs. It's only happened to me once that I thought, oh, that didn't sound good. And it was because I was in well temperament, and you know how in certain musicals they'll like go up a step. They'll be like, we're singing like this, but then, oh, we're singing like this, and then, oh, we're singing like this, and this is exciting because we're going up a tone, but if we keep going up a tone, it's gonna be really, really exciting, and then if we go up that tone, it's gonna be, and you're like, okay, it just kind of kept going up. And within well temperament, some of those are going to sound exciting and some are just going to sound more dissonant. So it's like confusing. But it just happened. And actually it only went up one tone, but it just went from A to B flat. And instead of sounding like kind of exciting, it went from A, which is kind of, very active key, to like B flat, which is very trumpety, and it just sounded silly. So, but I mean, I can tell you it's pretty rare. I would say that most music, it sounds fantastic in a Victorian key. It will sound more musical and alive, and you're not going to want to go back. But hey, don't take my word for it. Do it yourself.